A brother's final cry in the shark-infested waters of Iron Betom Sound, off the Solomon Islands. A lone voice pierced the pre-dawn silence on November 17, 1942. Al, Matt, Red, Frank, where are my brothers? George Sullivan, the eldest of 5 Irish-American siblings from Waterloo, Iowa, floated deliriously on a makeshift raft, his body ravaged by saltwater poisoning and grief. 4 days earlier, a Japanese torpedo had vaporized the USS Juneau in a cataclysmic explosion, claiming 687 souls including his 4 brothers. George's pleased echoed across the debris field, a haunting refrain amid the moans of the dying and the thrash of unseen predators. By dawn, he stripped off his clothes, whispered of a bath on shore, and slipped into the depths, never to resurface. This wasn't just a wartime tragedy. It was the shattering of one family's unbreakable bond, a story that would rewrite military policy and etch the Sullivans into the American psyche as symbols of sacrifice. But how did 5 brothers, inseparable in life, meet such a unified end? Their tale begins, not in the fury of battle, but in the heartland's quiet streets, where loyalty was forged in laughter and loss. Waterloo, Iowa, in the early 20th century, was a bustling factory town of 25,000 souls, anchored by the Rath-Packing Company, a meat-packing behemoth that processed hogs into bacon and sausages for tables across the Midwest. Nestled along the Cedar River, the city embodied the American dream. Immigrant grit, Protestant work ethic, and a fierce community spirit. It was here, amid the stockyard's earthy temps and the hum of assembly lines, that the Sullivan family planted their roots. Thomas James Sullivan, born in 1883 to Irish immigrants from County Tipperary, embodied the old world's tenacity. A railroad man through and through, Tom worked as a freight conductor for the Illinois Central Railroad, hauling grain and livestock from dawn till dusk. His hands were calloused from coupling cars, his stories laced with the lilt of his parents' brogue. In 1907, he married Aleda May Abel, a vivacious woman of German-English descent, born in 1895, in nearby Boone, Iowa. Aleda, with her sharp wit and unyielding optimism, balanced Tom's stoic demeanor. She managed the household with the precision of a quartermaster, her kitchen a hub of corned beef hashes and apple pies that drew neighbors like moths to a flame. The couple settled at 98 Adams Street, a modest 2-story frame house in Waterloo's working-class Irish enclave. It was a neighborhood of shotgun shacks and victory gardens, where Catholic church bells from St. Mary's pealed on Sundays and kids played stickball in the alleys. The Sullivans' home, painted a cheerful yellow, became a whirlwind of children, 7 in all, though tragedy struck early. There first, Genevieve Marie, arrived in 1910, a bright-eyed girl who would grow into the family's steadfast anchor. Then came the boys, the heartbeat of the household. George Thomas in 1914, Francis Henry Frank in 1916, Joseph Eugene Red, for his fiery hair, in 1918, Madison Abel Matt in 1920, and Albert Leo Al in 1924, a second daughter. Kathleen May, born in 1922, succumbed to diphtheria at just 2 months old. Her tiny grave, a quiet scar on the family's memory. Life for the young Sullivans was a tapestry of boyhood adventures and economic hardship. The Great Depression cast long shadows over Waterloo in the 1930s. The Rath plant, once a lifeline, slashed wages as hog prices plummeted. Tom Sullivan's railroad job held steady, but luxuries were scarce. The boys, rambunctious and inseparable, roamed the riverbanks, fishing for catfish and skinny dipping in summer. George, the leader at 6 feet tall with a boxer's build, was the protector, quick with a joke, but fierce in a scrap. Frank, wiry and mechanical, could fix any broken bike with scavenged parts. Reed, the hothead with a mop of copper curls, dreamed of adventure beyond the stockyards. Matt, thoughtful and artistic, sketched ships in his notebooks, while little Al, the baby of the brood, trailed his brothers like a shadow, his impish grin disarming even the sternest neighbor. Education was practical, not prolonged. The boys attended St. Mary's Catholic School, where nuns rapped knuckles for daydreaming, then Roosevelt Junior High and West High School. But the siren call of work pulled them early. By their mid-teens, all 5 toiled at Rath-Packing. George and Frank on the killing floor, wielding cleavers amid the steam and squeals. Red and Matt in the canning lines, sealing Spam tins. Al, at 16, sweeping floors and fetching tools. The plant was a rite of passage, paying 35 cents an hour, enough for Saturday matinees at the Iowa Theater, where Errol Flynn swashbuckled across the screen, inspiring dreams of naval glory. Family was the Sullivans' religion. Sundays meant Mass at St. Mary's, followed by a raucous dinner where Tom spun yarns of Irish rebellions and Elida S. apple strudel vanished in minutes. The boys formed a tight-knit gang, pooling nickels for ice cream or defending each other in playground brawls. Genevieve, the only sister to survive infancy, mothered them all, earring shirts and mediating squabbles. We were one unit, she'd later recall. Lose one, you lose us all. This bond, forged in shared chores and Depression-era frugality, would prove both their strength and their undoing. December 7, 1941, dawned crisp and ordinary in Waterloo. Tom Sullivan was coupling cars at the rail yard when news crackled over the depot radio. Japanese planes had bombed Pearl Harbor, shattering the Pacific Fleet. The attack claimed 2,403 American lives, including Seaman First Class William Bill Ball, a 22-year-old from nearby Fredericksburg, Iowa. Bill wasn't just any sailor. He was the Sullivans' neighbor and pal, a frequent visitor to 98 Adams Street for poker games and Aleda's potato pancakes. His death hit like a gut punch. That evening, the family huddled around their Philco radio as President Franklin D. Roosevelt thundered a date which will live in infamy. The boys, sprawled on the living room rug, exchanged glances. George, 27 and newly married to Geraldine Gary Hodel, though the union would soon falter, clenched his fists. They got Bill, he muttered. We can't sit this out. Frank, 25, nodded grimly. He'd tasted Navy life before. In May 1937, George and Frank had enlisted in the peacetime Navy, serving for years aboard the destroyer USS Hovey, DD-208. They'd circumnavigated the globe, from Panama to Pearl Harbor, dodging typhoons and painting the hull endless gray. Discharged in June 1941, they'd returned to Wrath, but the sea's call lingered. By New Year's Eve, the brothers were resolute. On January 3, 1942, in Des Moines Federal Building, George, Frank, Red, Matt, and Olages 27 to 18 signed re-enlistment papers. A Des Moines Register reporter captured the moment. 5 husky Waterloo bros who lost a pal at Pearl Harbor were accepted as Navy recruits yesterday. You see, explained George Sullivan, a buddy of ours was killed. Bill Ball of Fredericksburg. The stipulation. They serve together. We go in as a family, George insisted. We come out as a family. The Navy, still reeling from Pearl Harbor and short on manpower, agreed despite whispers of a nascent policy to separate siblings. Basic training at Great Lakes Naval Station near Chicago was a brutal awakening. The recruits drilled in sub-zero winds, marching cadence to reveille blaring from phonographs. George and Frank, veterans, breezed through rifle quals and knot tying. Red chafed at the regs, earning extra push-ups. Matt excelled in gunnery sims. Al, the rookie, wide-eyed, but eager, penned letters home. Mom, the chow's not bad, reminds me of your stew. By February 3, they boarded a troop train to New York Navy Yard, assigned to the commissioning crew of USS Juneau, CL-52, a sleek Atlantic-class light cruiser, fresh from Federal Shipbuilding in Kearney, New Jersey. The Juneau was a 6,000-ton marvel, 541 feet long, armed with 16 5-inch anti-aircraft guns, torpedoes, and depth charges. Christened on February 14, 1942 Valentine's Day by Mrs. Harry I. Lucas, wife of Juneau, Alaska's mayor, she symbolized America's industrial might. Captain Lyman K. Swenson, a grizzled submariner, took command. The Sullivans reported aboard amid the clang of welders and the scent of fresh paint. A now iconic photo captured them on deck. George and Dungaree's arm around Al, Frank grinning, Red's red hair vivid, Matt and Al beaming. Little Jimmy, Al's 15-month-old son born to wife Catherine in November 1941, even enlisted in a tiny sailor suit for the shot. The brothers' assignments reflected their personalities. George as a gunner's mate, second-class GM to C, handling anti-aircraft batteries. Frank as a coxswain, steering launches. Red as a seaman second-class S2C, on deck watch. Matt as S2C in the powder magazines. Al as S2C, assisting in the engine rooms. They bunked together in forward berthing, turning the compartment into a slice of Iowa tacked with pin-ups and wrath-packing calendars. Shipmates dubbed them the Sullivan Five, their banter lightening the tedium of shakedowns. The Juneau departed New York on March 22, 1942, for her Atlantic shakedown. Cruising to Trinidad and Puerto Rico, she fired practice rounds at towed targets, her guns thundering like summer storms. The brothers adapted quickly. George mentored Al on fire control, while Frank navigated foggy maneuvers. In May, she escorted a convoy to Norfolk, then screened carriers in the Caribbean. Rumors swirled of U-boat wolfpacks, but the Sullivans' letters home brimmed with bravado. Ship-ass like a floating city movies every night. By August, with the Pacific ablaze, Juneau transited the Panama Canal to join Task Force 18 under Rear ADM Frank Jack Fletcher. Based at Espiritu Santo in the New Hebrides, she plunged into the Guadalcanal campaign, a grueling 6-month slugfest for a malarial jungle isle that would claim 7,100 Americans and 31,000 Japanese. Guadalcanal was no glory post, it was Starvation Island, where Marines fought with captured rice and rusted bayonets. The Juneau's baptism came on September 15, when Japanese sub I-19 torpedoed carrier USS Wasp, CV-7. Juneau plucked 1,910 survivors from the oil-slicked sea, her decks awash with burned and broken men. The brothers worked 18-hour shifts, passing water in bandages. Red later wrote, "Saw things no kid should, guys, with half their faces gone. But we held." In late October, during the Battle of Santa Cruz Islands, Juneau screened USS Hornet CV-8, downing Zeros with her pom-poms. Hornet sank, but the Sullivans emerged unscathed. November 8 marked the cruiser's pivot to Savo Sound, Iron Bitum, for its graveyard of hulks. Task Force 67.4 cruisers, San Francisco, Portland, Helena, Atlanta, Juneau, and 8 destroyers under Rear AD. Daniel J. Callahan sailed to bombard Japanese positions on Guadalcanal. Callahan, a devout Catholic like the Sullivans, broke his flag on San Francisco. The brothers sensed the stakes. George confided to a shipmate, "This is it, do or die."